All right, welcome back to ABA exam review and our sixth RBT practice exam, where we're going through the next set of questions together and breaking them down. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Please like and subscribe. Check out btexamreview.com for all of our study materials, including our combo pack. As always, when you pass, let us know so we can include you in the Sunday shout out. Work hard, study hard. Let's get going. You accuse your significant other of not listening to you when you talk. They're always asking you to repeat yourself. You decide you're no longer repeating yourself when they ask, and instead you are just going to keep talking. You are doing what to your significant other's request? All right, behavior question. We are looking at whose request? The significant others. We always have to identify whose behavior we're looking at. And we're looking at their request relative to what we are doing. So what are we doing to the significant other's request? So there's a couple of things going on here. We know that you accuse your significant other of not listening to you when you talk. So what do? Well, they ask you to repeat yourself. In the past, you have, because the question says you decide you're no longer going to repeat yourself when they ask. So before, they would say, can you repeat yourself? And you would. Now, what are you doing? When they ask you to repeat yourself, you're just going to keep talking. So previously, when they asked you to repeat yourself, you would provide reinforcement because you would. Now, what are you doing? You're going to withhold the reinforcement and keep talking. You're no longer repeating yourself. What do we call this? Well, you're doing what to your significant other's request? A, reinforcing it. Previously, you were reinforcing it. They would ask you to repeat yourself, and you would. This reinforce their behavior because they would continue to do it in the future. You're no longer going to be doing that. Are you B, punishing it? Well, you're not punishing it, right? You're just withholding reinforcement, because we have to look at, in context, right? Their request used to receive reinforcement by you repeating yourself. By you not repeating yourself, you're not providing any more reinforcement. Well, you might say, well, you're just going to keep talking. Aren't you punishing it? We can't say for sure because we don't know if their behavior is actually going to change. So we can't say for sure you're punishing anything by just talking, right? What we know for sure, though, is by not repeating yourself, you are withholding reinforcement for previously reinforced behavior, which makes this C, putting it on extinction. And then D, ignoring it. Maybe technically you are ignoring it, and there are things such as planned ignoring and extinction procedures. But in this case, what's the best answer? Well, putting it on extinction is the much better answer, right? It's the more technical answer. It's the more precise answer. And that's the answer we're looking for. The best, most precise, technical answer we can give, which is putting it on extinction. Just saying ignoring it isn't giving it enough credit. You are putting your significant other's request on extinction. 26. Kurt is putting together a massive fireworks show for the 4th of July. He wants to get started on setting it up as early as possible the day of the 4th, but his wife tells him he needs to go grocery shopping first before setting up the fireworks. What does this represent? So let's think about this scenario. We have Kurt, who's putting this fireworks show together for the 4th of July. He's very excited. He wants to get started setting it up as early as possible. However, his wife says, before you can do that, keyword before, you have to go grocery shopping. So first, go grocery shopping. Then you can set up fireworks. Well, clearly a contingency, right? A first, then, if then statement is being established. If you go grocery shopping, you set up fireworks. First, you go grocery shopping, you set up fireworks. Now, precisely what type of contingency are we using? What type of intervention is she using? Well, she's letting the opportunity to engage in the preferred response function as reinforcement for the less preferred response. And what do we call that? A, the Premack principle. Yes, this is the Premack principle at work. Premack principle, or grandma's law, says you use the opportunity to engage in a highly preferred response as reinforcement for engaging in a low preferred response. So the high preferred response is setting up the fireworks. Low preferred is grocery shopping. So first you go grocery shopping, then you can engage in your preferred response. A is our answer. We read all of our answer choices always, so let's keep going. B, high probability request sequence. The high P sequence is almost the opposite of the Premack principle, because with the high P request sequence, we're asking our learner to engage in some very highly preferred and high probability request first, and then the low probability request. With the Premack principle, you're engaging in the low preferred request first to get the opportunity to engage in the highly preferred request. We're not C, shaping anything because there's no approximations being reinforced here. And then D, positive punishment. Well, there's no indication of any behaviors decreasing. There's no clear consequence, which would be the punishment. Positive punishment doesn't really fit. What Kurzweil is using and what this scenario represents is the Premack principle. First, you go grocery shopping, low preferred, and then you can set up your fireworks, high preferred. 27. Which of the following answer choices does not represent stimulus generalization? Key here is does not. You have to read very carefully. So which does not represent stimulus generalization? And what is stimulus generalization? Well, stimulus generalization occurs when a response occurs in the presence of multiple stimuli. So if you train the color green in the presence of a card that's green, and then your client goes out and starts identifying green items, right, pointing and saying green to other items, they're generalizing across stimuli. So we're looking for an answer choice that does not represent that. A, Claire learned the color red in school. When she got home, she started identifying all the red items at her house. Well, that's what we just talked about, right? We have a singular response of identifying red, and now she's going around and identifying all the red stimuli. This is stimulus generalization. B, John is given a debit card to use around his college campus. John uses it at different restaurants, the bookstore, and vending machines. Okay, so John is able to do what? He's able to engage in the response of using the debit card at all these different places. He's generalizing across stimuli, the restaurants, the bookstore, and the vending machines. C, Chrissy is cooking dinner. She chops half of her carrots into big pieces and slices the other half into small pieces. What is Chrissy doing here? Has she generalized across stimuli? Well, not necessarily, right? Because we only have a single stimulus here, and that is the carrots. What has she done? Well, she's differentiated her response, right? Because she's cut half of it into big pieces and half into small pieces, but she hasn't generalized to, say, other vegetables. So C doesn't look like stimulus generalization to me. And then D, Kara loves all dogs regardless of breed. Well, what is Kara doing? She is generalizing her love to all dogs of any breed. So the answer choice that does not represent stimulus generalization out of these four is Chrissy is cooking dinner. She chops half of her carrots into big pieces and slices the other half into small pieces. There's no stimulus generalization going on. 28. If you're using discrete trial training, when should you implement the prompt? All right, I like this question because as an analyst, I see the prompts being delivered constantly wrong. So we want the prompts to be delivered in the right spot. Remember, a prompt is just a temporary SD. So the prompt needs to come right after the SD, right before the response. So in DTT, when are you implementing the prompt? A, immediately after the first wrong response. So SD response prompt. No, the prompt does not follow the response. The prompt comes prior to the response. The prompt is an antecedent. B, right before the response occurs. SD prompt response. Yes. So we have an SD. We then prompt becomes our temp SD, and then we get our response. C, after the consequence. Again, no, a prompt is an antecedent, right? So it's not going to follow the consequence. And then D, prior to the SD. Again, incorrect. We want our SD, then the prompt to follow, and then the response. That prompt becomes our temporary SD until we fade it. Simplistic question, but very important question. The prompt has to come in the right spot to be truly effective. 29, Rashid will sit in his chair and stare at the wall, refusing to answer any direct questions from adults. The behavior analyst on the case instructs the technician to provide Rashid reinforcement if he responds in any way and at any point. What type of reinforcement is this? So let's think about this, right? We've got Rashid, and we're talking about reinforcement, right? And who's delivering reinforcement? Well, the technician is supposed to deliver reinforcement if he responds in any way and at any point. Meaning anytime Rashid responds, he's getting reinforced. So no matter what, right? And what does that sound like to you? Well, to me, it sounds fixed, right? It's not going to be on average. It's not going to be changing. And to me, it sounds like a ratio because it's based on responses. Looking at Rashid's responses, and anytime the response occurs, we reinforce. And so if we're reinforcing every single time a response occurs, that's an FR1, also known as a continuous reinforcement. Remember, continuous reinforcement is fixed ratio 1. FR1 is the only type of continuous reinforcement we have. All other schedules are intermittent. It isn't a variable schedule either because it's fixed. Anytime Rashid responds, you reinforce. Fixed ratio 1. It's not an interval schedule because it's not based on time. It's based on responses. So what type of reinforcement is this? It's going to be A, continuous. 30, Josh's daughter sometimes struggles to ride in the car without screaming. Josh will sing songs with her, but only if she is not engaged in screaming. What type of differential reinforcement is this? Now, differential reinforcement. First, ask yourself, am I teaching a replacement behavior? If I'm teaching a replacement behavior, it's got to be DRA or DRI. Alternative and incompatible, teach replacements. DRO does not. Are we teaching a replacement? No. And why not? Because all Josh is doing, right, is singing songs with her if she is not engaged in screaming. He's not teaching her a replacement for screaming. He's only reinforcing when she's not screaming. So what DR, differential reinforcement procedure, reinforces in the absence of a behavior? A and B, DRA and DRI, we know it can't be. One, we're not teaching a replacement. Two, with the DRA or DRI, a differential reinforcement of alternative or a differential reinforcement of incompatible behaviors, we're only reinforcing in the presence of the replacement behavior. With the DRO, what are we doing? We're reinforcing in the absence of the target behavior. So the target behavior here is screaming. Anytime Josh's daughter is not screaming, she's going to get reinforced with songs. So what type of differential reinforcement is this? DRO. 31. At work, Hillary dresses in professional attire and sits upright. When Hillary is in her own home, she dresses in comfortable clothes and lounges around the house without much concern about posture. Hillary's home is a blank relative to clothing and posture. Now, this is a more high-level technical question than you might normally see, but it's a good teaching question. And if you want to be the best technician and be really good at the exam and at this work, you want to start thinking along these lines. So we have SDs, right? We have discriminative stimuli. They signal consequences are available, okay? And so what we can also have are SDs for reinforcement and SDs for punishment, meaning a stimuli or stimulus that signals reinforcement is available, or a stimulus that signals punishment is available. Now, in this case, we know Hillary, she dresses professionally at work. When she gets home, she dresses comfortably and lounges around the house without much concern about posture. And why? Well, it's likely that these behaviors have been either punished in the past at work, or there's a rule in place at work telling Hillary not to do these things. When she gets home, however, comfortable clothes and lounging around has been reinforced in the past, right? She's comfortable, she's wearing whatever she wants, and it's just continuous reinforcement of lounging around and being comfortable in her own home. So her home is signaling what to Hillary? Well, it's signaling reinforcements available for the clothing and the posture, right? For this comfortable clothes and the lounging around. So Hillary's home is an SD for reinforcement relative to clothing and posture. Now, if we said, what about work relative to professional attire and sitting upright? Well, at work, professional attire and sitting upright would be reinforced. So work would be an SD for reinforcement for professional attire and sitting upright. Hillary's home is an SD for reinforcement for lounging around in comfortable clothes. So see how that works. And it's probably the opposite. The work is probably an SD for punishment for comfortable clothes and lounging around because Hillary's not going to do that at work. Now, don't overcomplicate it too much. All SDs are signals that consequences are available. Home signals to Hillary the consequence of, or the opportunity to engage in comfortable clothes and lounging around, the consequence of reinforcement for those behaviors are now available. 32. Which of the following answer choices is not your primary responsibility as a behavior technician? I also like this question. I always like to remind everybody as technicians what your primary responsibility is. It's important you know this because, one, you don't want to be taken advantage of and you want to be doing what your responsibility is. And two, we want to be ethical. So what is your primary responsibility as a behavior technician? A, writing treatment plans, behavior plans. You can assist in those things, but it's definitely not your primary responsibility. B, conducting functional analyses. You can assist, but definitely not primary. C, engaging parents in parent training, right? C, well, definitely not engaging parents in parent training. That is not your primary responsibility, right? And so if we're looking at answer choices that are not your primary responsibility, well, writing treatment plans is not, conducting functional analyses is not, engaging parents in parent training is not. What is your primary responsibility? Implementation, not an answer choice. So all three of these are not your primary responsibility, making D our answer. Great. Thanks for watching. Make sure you check out btexamreview.com. Subscribe so you get all of our video updates. Let us know when you pass so we can include you in the Sunday shout out. Work hard, study hard. See you soon.